Hi, I'm Barbara Silberman, and I'm the co-chair of the Committee for Community Preservation, along with Catherine Schlichtel. This is a public meeting, and as such, as it's being recorded, there is some information I need to give you. And here it is. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. If you would like to participate, you may call in on a phone and press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching the meeting on a computer or a device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or tap at the bottom of your screen. At the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. So tonight, what we're going to do is to hear from the applicants for this year's round of preservation funds. And following that, we will hear from members of the public about any comments they'd like to make regarding the applications or other matters related to the Community Preservation Committee. So with that, I would like to begin with the representatives from the Annisquam Historical Society, please.
Oh, roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Jamie, can you call roll with the appropriate affiliations?
Of course. Gloucester Housing Authority Representative Jennifer Lee Levitz Aronson.
Here.
Conservation Commission Representative John Feener.
Present.
Planning Board Representative Hank McCarl.
Here.
At-large member Ellen Preston.
Here.
At-large member and co-chair Catherine Schlichty.
Here.
At-large member and co-chair Barbara Silberman.
Here.
At-large member Pamela Toby. Open Space and Recreational Committee Representative Heidi Wakeman.
Here.
Historical Commission Representative Bob Whitmarsh. Thank you.
Okay, so now we can hear from representatives from the Annisquam Historical Society, please. You would like to present your project.
Mute myself. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes. Steve, can you let me know if the other member is calling in on a phone number or if I will be able to find their name?
You should be able to find their name, although I can't see myself, which is unusual for Zoom. I only see 246 of you. Maybe
Have
not.
your video on?
I do.
Okay.
So we have a Don Dexter and a DWTM Vince. Are they to present with you, Steve?
Yes, Teal, DW Teal, David Teal.
Okay.
He should be here.
Hands raised, Jamie, maybe you can bring him in.
Okay, but at any rate, if you can hear me, that's fine, as long as you can see Jamie's screen. Anyway, appreciate the time to present to you. What we decided to do was give you a little bit more insight in to where we proposed the stagecoach go and how it would be restored and who was doing the restoration, and a little bit about the history of the stagecoach relative to Gloucester and the village of Annisquam. So I put together about a 7-minute video that hopefully you'll be able to see. And after that video, would love to answer any questions that you might have relative to that, or any that in regard to the follow-up questions that we submitted last week. So Jamie, if you want to go ahead and show that, I'd appreciate it.
Of course. So I have not shared a video previously, so please let me know if you are not able to hear the audio as well.
Hansen grew up here on the South Dakota Plains, and one might say he was born a century too late. He identifies with the pioneer spirit and the traditions of the West, which gives him a great understanding of the workings of these traditional wagons.
I grew up here on the ranch here in South Dakota, and we had the wood shop, the metal shop, the leather shop, and so I kind of grew up with these trades around me. My mother is still alive, and she still actively runs her saddle shop. This is a hobby that got out of control. I had a fascination with the lost art, the craftsmen of old. We love the authenticity of it. We love to do it like it was done, and that comes from my fascination with that old world craftsmanship. We have actually done restoration on vehicles from the late 1840s, so that's quite old. This was from an era of extreme fine craftsmanship and such, so we've been forced to become self-sufficient. So we have our own wheelwright, we have our own blacksmith, there isn't anything that we can't make in the shop that's pertaining to a horse-drawn vehicle. Our wheelwright is using a lot of antique tools because they're not produced today, and if they are produced, they're not of the quality that we could find when it was a leading industry. We're a modern shop, but many of our pieces of equipment are antique. You know, like in the leather shop here, we have sewing machines from the turn of the century. The shop does about 50% restoration and about 50% of replications. In a restoration process, the first thing that we do is we spend quite a bit of time just soaking up the aura of the vehicle. It speaks to you. If you're around it long enough, it just starts talking to you. Some of the most unique restoration projects that we've done probably would be in the stagecoach world, because that's such an iconic vehicle. The process of construction, whether it's restoration or a replica, kind of flows through the shop much like a shop would have been set up back in the 1840s. And our shop is set up kind of to flow through the different stations. So the first thing that happens is the wheelwright area, so that we get a set of wheels built for the coach or the wagon, and then it rolls to the Wainwright, who is going to construct the undercarriage and such, and then to the coach maker that's going to do all the body work. Once the woodwork is constructed, it goes to the blacksmith, and now the blacksmith's job is to fit the wood with iron. Once that has happened, then the laborious task of preparing the wood and metal to be flawless and to be painted to a high gloss show car type finish. And then it's on here to the finish shop. So in this shop, we're going to be doing the upholstery work and the striping. And the striping and the lettering is the ornamentation that vehicle wears, and that's what everybody is fascinated with. We do quite a few vehicles through the year because, you know, part of them are restorations, part of them are conservation work where we are conserving a vehicle, and part of them are replications, and then of course there's the repairs and maintenance on vehicles and such. So we could be doing somewhere rolling in the neighborhood of 100 wagons through the shop a year. I'm very passionate about this. We're all very passionate about what we do. What we have done is in a lifetime of involvement in this, studying the authenticities of these horse-drawn vehicles, is we have kept history alive.
I'm presenting some information which represents the work of a lot of people. I'm not sure how you found them, Steve, but these two jokers appeared out of the North Woods, and I just happened to meet them coming in. I didn't even get in the building. They walked into the room, opened the door to Stagecoach, and popped up half of the jump seat. Underneath the jump seat, carved into the wood and covered with multiple layers of paint, is the builder's serial number for this machine. And they knew exactly where to look. The Abbott Downing Company was a very big deal in New Hampshire. And you can see from this contemporary print, it's a very large company. They made everything from limbers for the Federal Army, to tow behind cannons, to wagons, but their pride and joy was a Concord mail coach. That was the best thing that they made. The Stagecoach was brought out to commemorate Gloucester's 300th anniversary in 1923. And guess who is seated in the middle on the box? Anybody want to guess? It's a girl. Gert Griffin. How did we get it? Gert Griffin writes that the coach moved in along with lots of other stuff when the fire department moved out. Fire department didn't cede ownership of that building till the 1950s, but I guess they let us have it anyway. Stagecoach came out again in 1973, and guess who's sitting in it? Gert Griffin. And Molly Andrew, our good friends from New Hampshire, gave us some idea what the condition. They believe that the interior upholstery is original. Interior photograph showing you how elaborate the fabric was. Little side windows, but you can see the edging and the interior wood is red, which is pretty stunning if you think about it. It's 170 years old. I know that somebody probably has a 170-year-old settee from their grandmother upstairs in a bedroom here, but that's a long time for fabric to last. The running gear, which is the part under the coach body where you can lift the body off, and they said is extremely good condition. This is Peter. He's a very good man, but if you look over his shoulder, you can see the red original color. You can see it here, and you can see this little loose yellow wash.
You know, our heritage is very important. You know, whether you're a historian or not, our heritage is who we are. That identifies it.
Okay, thank you, Jamie, for doing that. Am I back on audio?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyway, do you have any questions about that? Hopefully that hit the high points of what's going to happen in South Dakota and the quality of work that they do and the importance that that coach has for and has had in terms of Gloucester's celebration of their 300th and 350th anniversary. So if you have any questions, David, are you on?
I don't know. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Well,
No,
it's
Steve,
even
did you
worse.
want
Can
to?
anybody, even worse, can anybody see me?
I can't. My video is off, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, I hear everybody loud and clear.
Steve, did you want to tell us about the plate where it's going to be not stored, but displayed, and kind of finish the rest of your presentation, and then we'll ask questions?
Well, as far as where it's going to be stored, I mean, it's going to be in the firehouse in Annisquam for the 400th. Are you asking me about the 400th?
Yes.
Celebration? I'm not sure I understand the mechanics of the 400th anniversary celebration. So I don't know where the best place would be. I mean, are we going to have more than a parade? Is it going to be over a period of time? I don't have the answers to that. So it's hard to come up with a definitive response for you.
Steve, this is Catherine Schlichty. Did you, thank you. That was actually a nice video to see about the restoration.
Thank you.
And this is going to be a conservation project, right? They're going to preserve as much of this as possible.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So my understanding about the 400 committee, it's going to be a year's worth of events. So has your organization reached out to the 400 committee at all to see where or how you might participate?
Good question. David, have you done that? I have not.
My wife tried a couple of times to get communication with the 400 committee, and we actually didn't get anywhere. I have had some preliminary conversations with Oliver Baker. Sorry.
Have any horses over there in Annisquam?
Listen,
We're used to.
I got an answer for that one with Oliver Barker. I'm from New England, so Oliver Baker. Anyway, I think they would be enthusiastic, but they don't know exactly either. You need a large place with good vertical clearance. coach is a very tall vehicle. And if you really dress it up, suppose that we're going to be somewhere on display for 6 months. You'd want to dress it up. And that would, to me, would mean, because I'm a ham, I would get some mannequins and I'd put them in period costume. And I would go out and I would steal, rustle, or otherwise acquire a couple of fiberglass horses. The horses are cheaper than the tack, than the harness. So we may have to go through barns in the North Shore here and find people who have old tack that they could loan to go on the horses. If we don't have enough space, then obviously you don't have my dream of the horses and the guy on the coach seat with a top hat on. So we have talked to Oliver, and I'm not sure that he can commit to a space in their new display area, but it would be a good place. And if that doesn't work, we have to find someplace else that has security and reasonable climate control. And I wondered about things that have atrium. I wondered about whether there might be something in Cruzport or there might be something in the Beauport Hotel. But the answer to your question, I'm not blowing smoke at you, is I don't know.
So if none of those options worked out, the plan would be to conserve it and put it back in the firehouse?
Well, Barbara, you may have seen in my presentation, I had this dream of getting a separate building to display it.
Yes.
And we don't have enough physical space for a fourth building. So even though I worked very hard on it, and architectural drawings and specifications and you name it, the consensus was, at least at the moment, was we don't have space on that campus. Other than inside the firehouse where it is lived.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have questions?
I have one thing. I thought, is the coach going to be going out to South Dakota for a while?
That's correct. Yes. And it could be out there for as long as 6 months, depending on their schedule and how much conservation actually needs to be done to the coach. They'll assess it once it gets there, but they will come and pick it up and take it out. And they have an enclosed truck where we can actually have it loaded onto their truck. They'll take it out and they'll deliver it back to us.
They move a great many carriages, many of which are probably even more valuable than ours. So they're pros.
So my question, is simply put, Ansquam's just as much of Gloucester's history as, say, Sageport Park is. So maybe you should consider having Ansquam be part of the 400th anniversary itself, and then help showcase that by allowing the public to view your carriage at certain times and periods during the potentially year-long anniversary. So that might be something to consider as well.
Yeah.
Well, we're now able to, because we put in heat pumps and things, we're now able to open the firehouse year round.
That's Dexter28@gmail.com.
And
All right, so
what's the capacity of the firehouse? What's the
You want
occupancy?
to go leave?
But can somebody please tell me what question I'm supposed to answer? I missed that.
We got interrupted. Yeah.
what's the overall capacity of the firehouse was the question on the table, sir.
The occupancy.
Good question.
You're the president of the village.
Yeah. I'm not sure we actually have an occupancy permit for that building now that you mention it. I can tell you with the current regulations, with the COVID regulations, it's with the Stagecoach in the building. If any of you were there when 4 of you, I think, came over that day, getting more than 6 downstairs with the current regulations would probably be about it, and the same amount upstairs. So You know,
However, if we escape the restrictions on visitor numbers from COVID, and I hope we will.
right.
So,
We had a rather large crowd for the Hindu Society that came. I think I included a photograph, did I? There are people in saffron robes because the coach turns out to be an important artifact for a very extremely well-known.
Yeah, without the COVID limitations, you can probably get 15 downstairs, and you can pass through. It's got, you know, it's got the big doors on the front that were the original firehouse doors, and then there's egress from the back, so you can kind of, you know, you can go through the firehouse and look at the coach that way.
okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
I have one more quick question. Is there fire protection sprinkler systems in this building? I know it's a firehouse and stuff like that. I want to make sure that the investment is protected.
Yes, there is. The building does have a sprinkler system as well as the village hall.
Great, thank you.
It's sprinklered, centrally monitored, sprinklered, and we have wireless smoke, carbon monoxide, and heat detectors on top of the wired system. And we installed what everybody in Gloucester should have on their front door, which is a fire department access box on the back of the door of the firehouse.
Oh, I thought it was a get out sign.
Yeah, well, you know, the other thing is we had all new windows put in that building in an effort for the climate control. And then we had the heat pumps and the air conditioning installed last summer. So the building is in much better shape as far as the environment is concerned than it had been in the past.
But it also makes it possible for people to visit year-round. In the old days, meaning when I was a kid, the firehouse was a great place to bake blueberry muffins in the summertime and a great place to keep a frozen leg of lamb in the winter, because whatever it was outside, it was inside. And now the door is going to be open whenever we wish to.
But I can assure you that the intent is to share that with Gloucester for the 400th. You know, whether we know exactly where it's going to go or not, certainly that is our intent to do, because it was done for the last two celebrations.
So beyond the 400th, what would your use of the stagecoach be?
Well, I think for events, if we could do it, if it was practical to use it for various local events, aside from actually having it horse-drawn, I mean, I think the liability on getting horses over there and pulling it around Gloucester is a little limiting, but you know, I think our intent is to keep it and to keep it in good shape, and that's, you know, one of the things that we want to do right now, to get it back into kind of condition that it's able to be shared with the community. But I think our long-term intent is to keep it and to use it as a history piece for the city of Gloucester.
It was displayed in 1973 on a flatbed trailer.
Right.
And that seemed apparently, I don't remember it being out, but from the photographs, it sounds like that was a fairly successful way of moving it around Gloucester for display. And it's something we certainly would consider in the future.
Sure.
In fact, I already have an offer from a company that will remain nameless to donate their flatbed trailer whenever we need it.
Okay, thank you. Do any other members of the committee have any other questions?
Well, I just have a comment. I want to thank you for application first. I think it was a good application, pretty clear what you're trying to do. My only concern about this application is you need to come up with a plan for where this stagecoach would be housed and have a definitive answer to that question. And also how it would be used in the future. Because I do think it's a beautiful piece of history. It's well worth restoration, but we want to make sure that one, it has a permanent home, and two, that it's accessible to the public and will be used for public display and the public benefit in the future. So I just tell that to you as my own personal opinions in reviewing the application, that I think it would be beneficial if you could put a little, there's going to be a couple months before we make decisions on these applications. So if in that period of time you can find a home for it and,
Gotcha.
kind of spell out what you would see as the future uses where the public could enjoy this restored stagecoach, that would, to me, be information that I would want to see going forward.
Okay, we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, so anybody else on the committee? Any other comments? I would just echo what Catherine said. I know your permanent home is the firehouse, but I would want to make sure that there was plenty of opportunity for the public to benefit from this.
Okay.
So if you can figure out about the 400th and you can figure out how you would make this accessible to people, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Jamie, I think we have a couple of participants that would like to ask questions.
Okay, raise your hand, see if I can see. You haven't got me opened.
Jamie?
Yeah, so the hands that I see raised have been given the ability to speak. So the username first is Don Dexter.
Great.
Yes.
But tell them why you're Dawn.
What's that?
Say you're Steve, not Dawn.
I'm Steve, Stephen F. Dexter.
Hi, Steve and Don. You have a
Hi.
question?
Yes. Tell them the problem, you couldn't get.
I'm not able, I use my wife's email and not mine. So I haven't come up on anything. Oh, you look at Slicky smiling.
Well, her name is up on my screen.
I know it is.
Okay. So do one of you have a question?
I use her email. No, I don't. I'm just trying to take part in this and listening to what's going on in the CPA.
Okay.
Maggie Rosa gave me instructions to get on.
Okay. So Don,
By
do
the
you?
way, let me say something. You said nobody from the 400th committee responded to you people. That's Bob Gillis, Ruth Pino, and Bruce Toby. They're the three chairpersons. Everybody know that?
400.
And you say you didn't hear from them. Or you haven't heard.
I think David said that, but we'll certainly make an attempt to talk with them.
Okay. Well, Bob Gillis is at the Cape Ann Savings Bank.
Okay. Thank
He's
you.
the president of the bank, so,
Yep. Yeah.
okay?
You'll hear back from us.
Okay, and I'll mention it to Ruth and Bruce also.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm still not clear. Don, do you have a question
No, she does
or a
not.
comment? Okay.
No,
All right. Do the Dexters want to say anything else
no, I'm fine.
about this? Okay.
This is a whole new experience for me.
Okay. So do we have another participant who wanted to ask a question or make a comment? It looks like two more people have their hands up.
No, those are the same two people, Bob, who
Okay.
are in common.
Okay. So let's go on to our next applicant then. That is the Cape Ann Museum. And I believe, Martha, are you going to present? Are you here? Martha Oakes?
Yes, Martha is here. I just have to
Okay.
allow her. So Martha, you should be allowed to speak and you can unmute your microphone. If anybody else from the Cape Ann Museum is here and wants to raise their hand, I can also give you the capacity to present.
No, it's just me, just Martha.
Hi, Martha. You want to go ahead?
Okay. So we are seeking matching funds to do stabilization work on the exterior of the Babson Alling House, which is at 243 Washington Street, right off Grant Circle. And our application runs through the history of it, built in 1740 and acquired by the museum in February of 2019. As you know, we own the White Ellery House next door and the little historic barn. And as everybody knows, we're just finishing up constructing a new collection center on the other end of the property. We realize that the Babson Alling House needs work. And we've had some very generous private donors step up to commit quite a bit of money. It's a project that we will do in 2 phases. We've already started. The restoration mason was here last week, and he did the much needed repairs to the foundation of the central chimney. That was our #1 priority, as identified in our conditions report. And then he'll be moving ahead shortly on the top of the chimney, which needs to be rebuilt. So the house is in pretty good condition overall, but there are a number of things that need to be done now while we're sort of in the construction mode. We will then follow with a new roof. It has a 35 to 40-year-old asphalt roof. And then do work on the little privy that's on the property, and then move over to the doors, the windows, the trim, the clapboards. So again, the goal is to stabilize the envelope of the building. Jamie had a couple of questions that I can just address. One was about the future use of the building. And since it's brand new to us, we haven't used it for anything yet. We're not exactly sure how we will use it. It'll probably be much the same way we use the White Ellery House, open to the public on a limited basis. It does have heating and plumbing inside, which the Ellery House does not. So we have many more options for use of the building, but it will be open to the public. It's also possible that we'll use it as museum meeting space. We envision having to do work on our headquarters in downtown Gloucester within the next few years, and it's possible that we will need to use some of the space in the Babson Alling House for administrative space during that time. So those plans are still in the works. Jamie also asked about lead paint and whether we had an abatement plan for it, and I'm certain it has layer upon layer of lead paint in it, and we do not at this time have an abatement plan in place. We don't want to rush and remove paint before we've had a chance to look at what's there. There's some wonderful woodwork inside it that was, as far as we know, has always been painted, and we don't want to be rash and destroy evidence. But we are aware that when it opens to the public, there could be families in there, so we will need to do something to mitigate the dangers of the lead paint. And then Jamie also asked about if there were any preservation covenants or easements on the building. It is listed on the National Register, and as you all know, that doesn't mean there's any covenants or easements. And at this point, the museum is not intending to put one on. There is one on the White Ellery House in the barn that was put on when we took some money from Mass Historical Commission about 15 years ago. But at this point, we're hoping that the museum can assure the preservation and the proper treatment of the Babson Alling House without having to put a preservation restriction or covenant on it. So that's sort of an overview of what I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have more information I can share.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions?
No,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. My question is that if your only plan that you just said with this property is to potentially have administration in the building, you don't really have a plan about the public yet. There might be lead paint. So I'm a little confused because this funding is for the public, and it sounds like we might be helping you just fund potential office space at this point. I know that's not what your intention is, but if you can look at what you just said with the application, that you don't have a plan moving forward. I think you can see my hesitance in seeing how this might benefit the public in general, not just private entities.
Well, we're a museum that's open to the public. We're not a private entity. And as I said the use of the building is in large part dictated by the building itself, as the White Ellery House building is. And as you know, we have the White Ellery House open regularly for the public. There are more opportunities to have displays or interpretive materials inside the Babson Alling House than there are in the White Ellery House. If you've been in the White Ellery House, you know there's no lighting in it. There's things that make it very difficult to interpret, but we envisioned interpreting some of the rooms. And again, they will be open to the public just as much as we can have them open to the public. That's all I can say at this point.
All right, that's fine. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't look at the application with the whole fine tooth. Is that aspect of your future plans for this Babson Ellery House in that plan, how it might benefit the public in the future, or is it just you think you will? I mean, if it isn't, like, see more explicit, potential functions of the building itself for the general public, just to benefit the community in itself.
Right. Well, it's closely related to the history of Gloucester. Letting people come in to learn about the history of Gloucester obviously is a public benefit. It has open space around it, which will be open to the public at no charge at any time. There's almost 2 acres of open land there that we will share with the public. It is one of those, the house is still in its original location at the town green, and it's one of those places that really contributes to the character of Gloucester, especially at the entrance to Gloucester when sort of first impression for people. So we feel strongly that it's a wonderful way to welcome people. The whole site is. I guess
I couldn't disagree with you more. I couldn't disagree. I agree with you more. I mean, I grew up and I played practice Pee Wee football in the field that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the importance of the area that the role it has played in the past. I just trying to make sure that it has that same potential for the public moving forward. And I think you touched on it, but if we can move forward, get some more explicit functions in there so I can review them as part of the application, will help me determining the validity of it moving forward. That's all I'm saying. I've been not just verbally, just write a narrative out and just put a couple in the email, just so I can have it attached. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
As you've already heard from the first applicant, they are one of several who have approached the Cape Ann Museum. When he was saying Oliver Barker, he means the director of the museum. And we need to entertain all of the requests from all of the various organizations around Cape Ann that would like to share in our wonderful new collection center, which could accommodate their coach, and organizations that would like to collaborate with us to use the 2 acres of open land. I don't think it will be Pee Wee football, but there are a lot of things that can be done on that land. We realize that we're in a very busy neighborhood right there that doesn't have a lot of open space. Riverdale Park and some of those areas there that could benefit from having the open space there. The collection center, the new building, the one you see from the highway, 90% of it is storage for the museum's collection, which represents the history of Cape Ann. And there is what we're calling a flex space attached to it, which is just simply a big open room, which we envision using for programming. So if there's something going on outside, people can come in and use the big open space to use that building in ways that we can't use the Babson Alling House because it's 1740. And we can't use the White Ellery House because it's a study house with no electricity. So we feel like we have a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of interest from other cultural institutions around Cape Ann to collaborate with us. So we're working on our plans.
That's great. So if you just, like I said, that's my last point, I'll leave it alone. If you can just put that into a narrative form, so I can have it as part of the packet, what your plans are moving forward, it will help me out. That's all. Everything you said to me, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great concept. So it's just, I want to make sure it's written down so we can refer to it moving forward for myself. So if we could do that, that'd be great. Okay.
Certainly.
I'd like to make a comment on the concern about lead paint. I think we get a little too concerned about that. The best way to handle it in a historic structure is to cover it up with non-lead paint. And there are ways to handle that. They're not going to have children in there chewing on the windowsills and stuff like that, like you do in a residential situation, where you really have to worry about lead paint. But I think that when you're dealing with historic preservation and so forth, there are ways to do that without having to tear it all apart and redo it again. Thank you.
Catherine, did you want to say something?
Well, Martha, I just wanted to ask you, like, that you sounded like you were opposed to a preservation restriction or covenant, and what would be your concerns about having a, preservation covenant on the property?
We're not concerned. I guess we feel as though we can ensure the proper treatment of the house. We reached out to Historic New England about such a thing, and you have to have you give them an endowment when you give them the easement, the covenant, and that's something that, although, people have been very generous for this project, we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to give to an agency like Historic New England so they can hold the covenant, so.
Right.
I spoke with Stephen Mallory, who is the head of historic properties at PEM. Now, they have several historic buildings now. I don't know whether they've taken CPA money from the city of Salem, but he tells me that none of their historic properties have any preservation easements held by outside agencies. So we're just trying to sort of police it and care for it ourselves.
Okay, I understand. I didn't realize, like, for a covenant that the enforcing agency would require an endowment from you to hold the covenant. So I think that.
Well, Historic New England does. I mean, if we took money from Mass Historical, then they would insist on it, and they would be the policing agency or the overseeing agency. That we don't give them money in that case.
Right.
But we reached out to Historic New England to see what their options might be.
Okay. So it might be something we can look at, that's something that's maybe a deed restriction or something that doesn't require.
Well, I think there are a variety of ways to do it, so that we are very concerned about having an easement on the property. The committee is. And the reason is because we are investing this money, and, the museum I realize that there are no plans for this, but the museum could sell it, or the people who are in charge of taking care of it now could let it go for some, could move on, and other people could come and not care about it. So we're pretty concerned that if we invest public money, that there's some protection there. I would also say that I'm very concerned about the use. I'm very interested in knowing how the house fits into your overall strategic plan for the museum. And I'm also concerned about the fact that I think that house is a really important interpretive site. It has a lot of history that we can't see other places in Gloucester. And although historic houses are not always viewed as something that is very cherished by the public, that has actually turned around quite a bit in the last couple of years, and people are visiting them a lot more than they did. So the fact that there is really a very good opportunity for interpretation there gives me pause about why there isn't a plan. So how does this fit into the strategic plan of the museum?
Well, this will be let's see, in addition to the White Ellery House and the barn, in our downtown location, there's a 1799 house there. So this will be our third house and our fourth historic structure. We treat them like they're part of our collections. So the custodian doesn't just go in and repaint the walls or, change the hardware on the doors or something. It's something that goes through the curatorial offices. So we can assure you of that, and we can certainly put that in writing also, that they're not, again, it's not just like our modern building. We realize there's a lot of history connected with that site, and I'm sure that in the future we will have interpretive exhibits as much as we can inside the building. I've told you it has a furnace in it. It is not climate controlled, however. It does not have any humidity controls, which is going to prevent me from putting the two Fitzhenry Lane paintings that depict the house and the scene. I can't put them in that house, but we will figure some way to have interpretive material there that talks about the town green, the early settlements, the sort of settlement pattern of the area, the Annisquam River, and things like that.
And
I have something, very important question, and it may have been answered already. You do have a bathroom.
Yes.
Okay.
So Martha, can we go back to the strategic plan?
Yes. I'm happy to share our strategic plan, which goes through the year 2022 with the committee. A very important part of our strategic plan is to take better care of our collections, which is why we have that new building going in there, because we have absolutely no room to care for our collections downtown. Part of our strategic plan is to also be an active participant in the 400th anniversary in 2023, and be able to help people have a well-rounded picture of the history of this community. I'm sure that something in the Babson Allinghouse interpretation will talk about why there was a settlement there, why early English settlers chose that area. And I'm sure that will have something to do with the indigenous people who lived in this area and probably were right in that section. So being ready for the 400th anniversary is an important part of our strategic plan. But I will share with Jamie the entire plan if you'd like, and I can highlight the sections that relate to caring for the collections in a better way.
Well, I was really looking to see, I mean, that's very nice of you, and it's certainly probably a lot more than we need, but I was thinking more about where does the the house fit into those plans? I mean, is it specifically mentioned?
I don't think any of the houses are mentioned in this strategic plan, just an overall sort of reference to the collections for caring and growing the collections.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else have questions for Martha?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Martha.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. Anyone from the public want to comment
Oh, sorry.
or have a question? Barb?
I didn't see any hands up.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. So now we will go to the Fitzhenry Lane house. Someone from the somebody here to represent that?
I am Barbara Mike Hale. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Great.
Thank you for
Great. How
coming.
are you?
Good.
So this is in the category of historic preservation. As you're aware, the Fitzhenry Lane house, sitting at Harbor Loop, looking over the harbor, is one of Gloucester's, beautiful architectural gems. It certainly captures our history, both architecturally and from the house of a well-known artist throughout the world. If you take a look at the building presently, it has very little use, and the roof has seen better days. It was reshingled with asphalt shingles. The application says 2010, but I believe it was 2008. And it was the Ico asphalt shingle that failed countrywide. There was a recall on those shingles, and if you didn't keep the original receipt, the manufacturer did not warranty the roof. It's been a subject of a lawsuit all over the country. Our contractor did not keep the receipts, and consequently, we have a roof that is in deplorable condition. There's probably as many asphalt shingles on the grounds as there are on the roof presently. Fortunately, it's a 12-pitch roof, very steep, and so the water does not seem to get in the building very easily. Looking at the tradition of the age of that building from the mid-1800s, roofing materials were limited to wood shingle and slate shingle primarily. Obviously, there were some metal roofs out there, but not for this particular pitch. We would very much like to replace this roof with a slate tile roof, in keeping with the architectural history of the building. And also we think that the black slate tile will really enhance this building, and it won't need to be re-roofed for another 100+ years. There is some trim work that would go along with the re-roofing of this building. And there are some public restrooms on the first floor that haven't been updated in decades, they look like. So we would include some in-kind services to upgrade those restrooms. We do believe it's a public asset. It helps. It's right at the head of the Harbor Walk. It's in the center of the downtown area. And certainly it's a place for the public to learn about the history of Gloucester, both architecturally and the art history of our community. That's, again, it's a very simple project for us. It would have to be publicly bid. We'd have to have it designed, but we would certainly be looking forward to doing this in advance of the 400th anniversary. That's really it, Barbara, in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Does anyone have any questions from the committee?
Mike, what's the, so right now the city has 2 tenants in the building, correct?
I think calling them tenants is a little more formal than the arrangement. I don't know what the arrangement truly is. The Adventure's in there, and I think one of the local sailing programs are in there. There's no formal agreement that I can find. And frankly, the building's underutilized. It's, again, the people that mill around that property during the day is significant, and it's not open for any type of visitation. And I think it certainly could be. I mean, there's certainly KPN Museum is the focal point for historic business downtown. But I think as you kind of walk around, whether you're coming from Cruzport or just walking along the Harbor Walk, I think this could be not necessarily an anchor, but certainly a stop along the way.
So you definitely, as part of this project, are going to redo those bathrooms, which are horrendous, which is good to hear. So I guess the thing, I know a lot of people use that property. They, the land around the buildings used quite a bit, as you know, as you said in your application for the concerts, and people picnic up there and groups meet up there and whatnot. So I think just the use of the land alone, provides a lot of public benefit. So, and I certainly think it's well worth preserving. I guess just the question is, what's the plan? I mean, I know it's important space for the people who are there now, but so it's open, I guess, is my question as to what the future use of the interior of the building is going to be used for.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this application was, again, I don't use the term recycled, but we looked at this a number of years ago before Mark Cunningham solicited the chamber to move to Harbor Loop. So we had anticipated this could possibly be kind of a remote tourism center, kind of away from the visitor center, but obviously with the chamber so close, it doesn't make sense. But it certainly does at least offer the city the ability to expand our offerings for historical stops along the downtown area. And frankly, if we're going to maintain this building, the building envelope has to be secure. So whether we are successful with this application or not, the work still needs to be done, because a building without a roof, the building that's going to decay very quickly.
So, Mike, I have a couple of questions. You know what the original roofing material was when the house was built?
So we had a roofing contractor who does a lot of preservation work look at it, and he was saying it would either be a wood shake or a slate roof. Given that this building has such ornate trim work and stonework is the way it is, they anticipate it may have been slate. You wouldn't invest all that in the building without that, just like City Hall was as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then my other question is, would it be possible as part of this application to include an interpretive element? And that could be a sign. It could be,
whatever
interpretive marker out front, something like that. Is that possible? So,
I think it's possible and necessary. I think
okay,
knowing
good.
that this is the Fitzhenry Lane building, is more local knowledge than it is the average
Right.
person visiting
Right.
Gloucester. And I think there could be a number of different elements added to this, whether it's a QR code that someone can pull up on their smartphone, or actually some signage for those who don't have phones to understand what this is. And again, that I think this opens for possibilities completely. And again, I don't want to say what it would be, but certainly there are a lot of possibilities for opening this up to visitors and for our local people as well.
Great. So you wouldn't object then if there was a small portion of money, I can't imagine more than about $1,000 that would go towards interpretation?
You'd be surprised what signs cost, but I'm not opposed to it either way. And that's something we
Okay.
could carry within our budget.
Okay, great. Okay, other questions from other people on the committee? Okay, Maggie Rosa has her hand up, Jamie.
Maggie, if you unmute your microphone, you should be able to pose any questions.
So I like the Fitzhenry Lane House. I think it is a landmark building in Gloucester, and it's very dear to me because of the way that the adventure organization brought us in. I would think that the difficulties with this building and making it accessible is that it would be limited to the ground floor. So I don't know what's in that area. It used to be the adventure store, but that's the only area that it would be accessible to handicapped people, I think. You can't, the staircase is way too narrow. It would be prohibitively expensive to make the entire building, including Fitzhenry Lane Studio, which is the magnificent structure on the third floor, accessible to people. But I do think that if you could make the ground floor accessible and with an interpretive sign, way back when in 2006, we had money from the Preserve America organization, which was for interpretive signage. And the idea there was to have signs that showed what Fitzhenry Lane painted. So you had a painting that was generated by Fitzhenry Lane at the various locations, and the Fitzhenry Lane building was one of those locations. Sadly, the signs, they are very expensive, deteriorated almost instantly. They weren't waterproof. So if it's all possible, I'd love to see that first floor made accessible to people. Thank you.
Thank you,
Along those lines, perhaps there could be a video display of the rest of the building and or the works, just something small on the ground floor that can be accessed easily by people who enter.
Thank you. Jamie, Patty Page has her hand up.
Patty, you should be able to speak if you unmute your microphone. And I'm just going to ask that people give their full name and their address for the public record, which is something we're normally supposed to request.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, is this coming through for you?
Yes, thank you.
Patty Page, 3 Tidal Cove Way in Gloucester. Thank you. Yes, I've followed this a little bit, and we spoke about the application at the first meeting. And I would like to make a little stronger request this time. I'd like the application to at least reflect correctly the current occupants as Schooner Adventure and Cape Ann Community Boating and the high school sailing team, Sail GHS. Now the boating programs, 2 of them share the first floor room. There's only 1 room on the first floor. And I don't know if this is, I believe strongly what's in writing is very important. So that's why I'd like the application to reflect correctly the occupants. And I'd also like to bring up that maritime education is a DPA compliant use. So that would fall within the use of the building. That building is actually within the DPA and MI. And as much as I respect all the hopes and dreams of opening the building for tourism, I don't believe tourism is a compliant use. Yes, we have some percentage that is for visitors, but if you look at Harbor Loop today, you'd be very hard pressed to find anything left that is compliant there. So I'm really gonna kind of advocate strongly to keep the one compliant use in the area intact. And if I can remind you from the previous meeting, the mayor was on the call and she stated that she felt that the use for the building didn't need to change, at least the first floor room for the boating programs, which she was the one that granted that access. Again, the bathrooms need to be renovated. I've spent time in the building. They do need renovations and I support the renovations. I just, a lot of this future use verbiage is being called out here. So if you're going to approve funds, I'd like the amendment of the application to include the current occupants and have tourism center struck from the application. As a point of note, I know Catherine last time had comically mentioned that there aren't a lot of bathrooms in the area, public bathrooms. I would like to point out that there's 5 separate locations of bathrooms between Harbor Loop and St. Peter's Square. I know it seems like a lot, but they're there. There's Maritime Gloucester, there's a new Harbor Master building, there's Fitzhugh Lane, there's the Gloucester House and Cape Ann Brewery. 4 of those places have required public bathrooms as part of their Chapter 91 licenses. So I don't know that they're all very publicly known or well advertised, but they're clearly there.
Is Captain Carlos also a public required restroom or no?
I don't believe so, Catherine. It all had to do with when you renovated, and they're sort of like a grandfathered in use. But you know what? They're in the front, and I've never seen anybody be turned away from there. I don't know that particular one.
And the chamber's going to have some public restrooms too.
And there you go. And not to say that Fitzhugh Lane needs this upgrade. Right now, the public bathrooms are broken and closed. Yeah. So, and I know Hank McCall was very comical last time to state that, well, we really didn't need a pit in the ground. And I understand that historic preservation comes with some compromise and negotiation. But when you look at the price of a poured rubber floor for $9,000, those bathrooms aren't even, they're very small. You may or may not be able to do anything about this, but I really would like some other kind of material used there. I don't know. Poured rubber floor just seems cold and hard to me, but.
Durable though.
Yeah, so's tile, but maybe that breaks. I don't know. I don't know. The rubber floor, I'll buy, but the other things I'm pretty adamant about. I don't understand this, more tourism stuff. I appreciate the value of the building. I understand that. I understand what Maggie's saying, that you can't really make any second or third floor because there's no access. Handicap access in that building is going to be extremely difficult, no matter how you do it. You wouldn't get a wheelchair down the hallway into the first floor, although there's an outside door. There's a couple stairs to go down, so I don't see any wheelchair access in the building at all unless the DPW puts a ramp for the bathrooms. And I don't know if anybody's ever walked up those stairs or walked up that hill, but it's a trip. If you had a choice between the Harbor Master, Fitzhugh Lane, or Maritime Gloucester, you're probably going to take another choice unless you're up there. So thank you. I appreciate you at least considering, what I've said here. And
yeah. So I think Mike himself has said that tourism center is probably not an option, given that the chamber is going to be right across the street and they have a tourism visitor center. So,
And we have Discover Gloucester in the Harbor Master Station, and you know.
Since my name was mentioned, I would like to say it should be ADA compatible because it is a public building, and that's certainly not going to be a pit in the ground. I mean, you know, that's part of all of these structures is to have ADA access and proper plumbing. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments about?
Yeah, quickly. So, I mean, I would personally feel kind of, first of all, what they're asking for is monies to repair the roof. And the in-kind services they're going to provide up for the bathroom restoration. So basically, I think the goal here is to protect what's in there too. And I think the in-kind donations of the bathroom restoration, though is wonderful, and we can use it as a way to show that the merit of the project can get done. Is not really what they're asking for. A, and then B, for them to state the businesses or the nonprofit organizations presently in there as part of the criteria moving forward may not be really a wise maneuver. We may just want to say that applicants who want to utilize this for these purposes with permitting through the city can be achieved, but not name, things, these organizations specifically, because again, things change in the future. So if it is a city-owned property, so it may want to have the city work out a plan to get permitting that's time for a permit to use this for that purpose, and just have it not be a specific business or organization. I don't want to cowtail ourselves into the corner. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions about or comments about Fitzhugh Lane House? Okay, Mike, I think you're still up, right?
What's next, Barbara? I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of
No,
me.
that's all right. What's next is stage 4.
which one?
Well, let's go with the one that is for the landscaping of the Lucy Davis pathway. And so there are really two applications in one there, but the first one that you would really be dealing with is the one for the landscaping plan. And I have to apologize because I did not pass that on to the committee in a timely fashion. And so they haven't probably had a chance to look at it. But if you want to just tell us about that, that would be really helpful, Mike.
So Barbara, I thought David Dow was going to make this presentation. I'll gladly do it, but I don't want to step on his toes as he's on the stage.
David Benjamin.
Okay.
This is Dave Benjamin, and I'm with David Dow.
Okay.
I'll stand by, Barbara.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to go ahead? The Davids, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, David Dow would like to start, please.
Fine. Good. Go ahead.
Okay, Barbara. David here, 12 Essex Street, Gloucester. We did do a site review today. So you're asking for the large landscape plan overview first rather than the off-cycle?
Yes, please.
Okay.
But excuse me, can I just get some clarification? So the off-cycle is for the funding of the landscape design for the pathway, right?
Pathways in the fort.
Yeah, and the fort, yeah.
Right. But you need the plan before you can do the construction. So that's why we were going to hear that one first.
You want to hear the plan first?
Please.
Okay. So we requested funding for the construction and renovation of the Fort area of Stage 4 Park and the continuance of the Lucy Davis Parkway to the Fort area. This project will include making the Lucy Davis Pathway ADA. This application includes the cost of lighting, site security system. The need for funding is driven by a deadline for project completion by 2022. This design is to be the centerpiece of the city anniversary celebration in 2023. We do have conceptual plans, and then we had more final plans done. but we need the construction plans, so the contractors and so forth looking at this and bidding on it have elevations in more detail, and to get that plan done for both pathways and the Ford area itself with a complete survey of that area for elevations and all that sort of thing is for $80,000. So we have to do that before we know how much the rest of it will cost and exactly what it will look like.
Yeah.
So the estimate that Mike got from Beta, I think is for 98,000 now. So some things have changed.
Yeah, that could well have gone up.
Yeah.
We use the first estimate from Beta at 80,000. So it's gone up for other reason which I'm not aware of, but it is a pretty comprehensive plan.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions about this plan? And, you know, again, bearing in mind that you haven't had a lot of time to think about it.
My only question about the plan is, same as the project itself, is just this seems to be a lot of substantial work that's going to be done within a buffer to protect the wetland area. So I'd like to make sure that that the agent in Gloucester, Adrian Lennon, is contacted, maybe do a tag meeting to you know, talk about some validity of certain aspects of this project moving forward before, you know, it gets to a point that it'll be hard to pass within the confines of the Wetlands Protection Act. So I think that I want to request that they involve the agent at this juncture in the overall planning. Just to brief filling her in on what's going on should be a benefit more than, you know, a detriment. And I think it will be a key element to trying to get this achieved.
Okay.
Well, there is, John, just so you know, on the, I'm just looking at their proposal. They do have a meeting with the city, meetings with the city as part of their cost for this plan and a public meeting. So I assume that that would be, and they have environmental permitting as part of the cost for the study. So I assume that, and in the final design, again, they have meeting with the city. So
No,
I assume
sorry.
that that is going to be for the purpose of permitting and making sure that they meet with city requirements.
Okay.
And am I disagreeing with you on that, Catherine? What I was saying is that yes, that's true, and it's in there. But I think that before all these plans are totally drawn out and all that stuff, that they should contact the agent in Gloucester, let her know what's going on, because she'd be a benefit, and that's kind of the reason why she's there. So I think helping me be more fluid moving forward and potentially, you know, get it done quicker. I think we should involve the people that the city pays to help these things get done.
And Mike, do you have a comment?
Well, Catherine hit it. We have included permitting in this. I don't think we've ever taken a project to the Conservation Commission that the agent hasn't been aware of the project in advance before it's submitted. It's bad math to do it like that. So Adrian will be brought in prior to the submission.
Okay, great.
And thank you. That's all. I just wanted to state that I wasn't accusing anyone of anything. I just want to make sure it was understood. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, do we want to go on to now sorry. Does the public have any questions about this particular application? Does anyone else want to comment? Okay, would the Davids like to talk about the off-cycle application?
Well, that was the off-cycle. That first one was the off-cycle for the construction plan.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the construction one then?
Yes. Okay, we're requesting funding for the construction of the renovations to the Ford area of Stage 4 Park, the continuance of the pathways to the Ford area. This project will include making the Lucy Davis pathway ADA compliant. This happening include cost of lighting, site security, and designed to be a center place for the city. Now that whole plan includes both pathways, in the Ford area itself, complete restoration of that, and the estimated cost at the time of our application in April was 800,000 total. And that takes care of that project.
Okay, thank you. Do people have questions about that?
So I just guess my only question is, and as you know, I just want to say, everyone knows I'm a big fan of this project. I think this is needed to happen up in State Fort Park for a long time. But David, how are you coming up with your construction costs if we don't have the plan? I mean,
that construction cost came from Beta after they did a couple of walkthroughs and did their concept plan, and then they filed a more formal plan showing pretty much what it's going to look like, except for the elevations and the detail.
right. So this is their best estimate. Yeah.
That isn't a number that I pulled out of the air. I am not going to be able to do any of that.
This was a categorical estimate from Beta for construction costs.
It's a categorical.
It is. It's part of your original package. It's called order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And it includes site preparation and demolition, site improvements for almost 450,000, contingencies, and a total construction cost of $610,000. And that's, I mean, this is early in the process. This is before Mike Hale had an opportunity to sit down and talk to Beta and make some modifications.
Okay, so Mike, it would be helpful if you could explain why the planning one is going to be so expensive if there are these other plans.
So there's some conceptual plans. Those are cartoons, Barbara. Those basically get us an understanding of what people want to see when it's done. That's something that everyone can look at, understand it. Now we need to get into the nitty gritty for a bidding document that has something that a contractor can understand, the cuts and fills, grades, the compliance piece, and so forth. And just to hit on how do the construction numbers reach what they are, these firms take a look at similar projects. They get a cost per unit, and they recognize that in order to do this project, you have so many units of walkway, certain width wide, materials, lighting, and that's how they give an early price proposal or an estimate for something like this. And there is a contingency built in here that is probably relatively high at this stage.
Okay.
In light of the fact they're not fully designed yet.
Okay. Thank you. Do other committee members have questions for David Dow or David Benjamin or Mike Hale? Okay, let's hear the third one for $10,000.
Wait.
I don't have a third one, Barbara.
Okay, we have one listed on our list here. Jamie, do you want to comment on that?
Survey? Are you talking about the survey, site survey?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The plan was $70,000. The site survey is 10. So total the 80 for the off-cycle design plan.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so it's not a separate application?
No.
Okay.
The off-cycle application is for the site survey and for the construction plan.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah,
back
sure.
To the Lucy Davis pathway. So, and I guess it's a question from Mike Hale. So the total project budget for the pathways and the rest of the work up at the Cannon area is $800,000, and the CPA request is $300,000. So if it comes in above that, I'm assuming the city's going to fill in the rest of is going to cover if there's a shortfall. If it goes beyond the contingency, I think the contingency is 120 or something, like 160. So if it goes above that, the city's gonna pick up the rest of the construction costs.
I would assume so, Catherine. I mean, we're still in the early stages of this. You know, we can only ask for so much money from your organization, and then it'll be the city project.
Yeah.
You know, we recognized long ago when we were looking at different funding opportunities for the work in stage 4 that there would be some local money, whether it's a stabilization fund, budgetary money, or a capital request. We're gonna have to pony up some money for this project for sure.
Okay.
And once we get into the design, we'll have again, timing's everything.
Better
We get it
idea.
done. Yeah, we'll have an idea, and then we'll know what our share is on top of the CPA funding.
Right, because my concern is I just want to make sure if the CPA approves $80,000 for the study, that the second step actually happens, that the pathway gets constructed.
So the total cost for the plans and the construction is almost $1 million?
Yes.
It is. It is.
$880,000 right now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? How about from people in the audience? Okay, I think we are finished. Thank you both for coming. Thank you, Mike, for coming. Oh, wait a minute. I guess, Mike, you're going to stay for City Hall?
I wasn't. The City Hall Restoration Committee was going to take care of that. I think JJ and Maggie, they know it better than anyone.
Okay.
I will be managing the project, but they know the nuts and bolts of the application better than I.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you to David and David for your presentations and for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will now hear from City Hall. Who's, JJ, do you want to go ahead? Can you let him go, Jamie?
He should be all set.
Am I good?
Yeah, so your name and your address, please.
Well, you can hear me. Okay, that's good. So my name is JJ Bell. My address is 3 Banner Hill Way in Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of the City Hall Restoration Commission. It's a joint application with the DPW. I think Vanessa Krawczyk is here from representing the city. She told me she was going to be here in any event. So there are a number of reasons why City Hall holds a special spot at the center of our community and with the citizens of Gloucester. It's an architectural icon visible to all. It defines our skyline. It creates a sense of place and commonality. And it anchors the Civic Center and downtown. It houses archives dating back to 1642, as well as important WPA murals. And it's been the municipal seat of government and a community center since 1871. So, and with the generous assistance of CPA and a number of other funding sources, much has been accomplished by the Restoration Commission in recent years. We've straightened and stiffened the tower, the 150-foot tower, which was in imminent danger of toppling. There's been an exterior restoration of the tower, the decorative building corners, existing porticos, the architectural ventilators on the roof, as well as painting the building the original khaki color. The windows, the historic windows have been restored and winterized. There's been a repair and restoration of the bell and the clock given by Sam Sawyer. And there's been a handicapped upgrade of the whole building to bring it into compliance. All of this with funding from CPA, Mass Historical Commission, city funds, private citizens, and foundations. So today, we're here to ask for critical assistance for the protection and preservation of this landmark from a catastrophic fire. We need to address the fact that City Hall, as it stands today, has no sprinkler system, has an obsolete 35-year-old fire alarm system, and a non-code compliant electrical system. 2 reports, one done in 2015 by McKinley Kalsow Architects, and more recently by Dorr and Whittier Architects, have concluded that given the building's age, chimney-like tower, and wood construction, the building is at high risk for fire without upgrade. The significant risk of fire to this historic building and the treasures it houses, as well as the danger to the surrounding neighborhood, including elderly housing, prompted the fire chief to take notice and to join Mayor Taken, Senator Tarr, and Representative Ferrante, as well as obviously the City Hall Restoration Commission, to petition the state for funds to assist in this project. After a number of years of discussion with the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of ANF, the state has come to understand the importance of City Hall to Gloucester and the fire hazard it poses. As a result, this year, the state has awarded the City of Gloucester $1.5 million toward the installation of a sprinkler system and the update of both the fire alarm system and the electrical system at City Hall. According to the initial cost estimates of Dorr and Whittier architects, the total cost of the above fire protection work would be $3.2 million, including contingencies. Our request for the CPC today is $1.7 million, which when combined with the state funding, adds up to the needed $3.2 million. I should point out that fire protection upgrades would be done in conjunction with certain IT upgrades, just because it makes sense to do them at the same time. The cost of the IT upgrades would be paid 100% by the city and not by CPA or the state. Jamie, could you show the first slide? So the idea of a catastrophic fire is no theoretical risk. It has happened once before in 1869, destroying the then town hall on this site, which predated our current city hall built in 1871. As shown by this, which has now disappeared, this Jerome Elwell painting of the same year, which hangs at the Cape Ann Museum. There you go. More recently, of course, in 2007, we had the Lorraine Apartments disastrous fire, which took a life in much of the block that surrounded it. Jamie, could you throw up the second slide, please? So, a couple last points. The preservation of this cherished building is central to and in the interest of the whole community, and hence the broad support this request enjoys, as you can tell by the letters of support in our application. We also hope you agree that the time is absolutely ripe to do this important project now. The fire risk to the building preservation has been demonstrated, I think, through those studies. We are now able to leverage generous state funding. There is broad local support. Interest rates on bonds are historically low. The existing CPA bond matures in just a few years. The 400th anniversary of Gloucester is at our doorstep, and next year is the 150th anniversary of City Hall. We know it's a big request, but in your wisdom, we hope you can see fit to support this vital undertaking. Many thanks for your time this evening. And happy to answer any questions.
So are there questions from the committee?
I just like to say one thing. I brought it up at our last meeting, and I was going to reinforce it tonight. The most important line in the application for me was that the ability for them to switch funding from us. They can switch the lines around them, you know, and that's key because some of the things that were put in front of us in the application may not be, you know, acceptable for CPA funding, but there is plenty of room in the application to put those funds towards those necessary types of activities. It states in the application that we can do so, and I just want to be aware that moving forward, if you know this is approved, that my suggestion would be to make sure that we do have those categories set to make sure they adhere to what we have funded in the past and are allowed to legally through CPA guidelines. That's all. It's simple. Thank you.
I have a question, JJ. Could you just go into a little bit more detail about the cost of the electrical upgrades?
Yes. So
Is that part of the IT or how did that?
no,
where-
no. The IT is totally separate.
Okay.
The electrical upgrade is because there are 13 electrical panels in that building, and half of which are in poor condition. The other half are in fair or decent condition. So no, the electrical upgrades have to do with the thing that will probably cause the fire.
Okay.
As opposed to the IT upgrades, which has to do with communications and the like, and they're separately listed in the line items on the spreadsheets that were in the application. So that's a good question, and it's a very important question because I know you have no interest in doing the IT work, but the electrical is very important because that's probably the thing that'll start the fire.
Right. And so I don't remember if this is in the application. I apologize. So what's the, how many amps is this building?
Oh,
And is it going to get upgraded to more?
You know something, it's in the scope there. I honestly haven't read that thing in quite a while, so I actually forget. I know the water service will be upgraded for the sprinkler system. In terms of the amperage of the building, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were.
And do you know if the architects included in thinking about upgrading the electrical, you know, future IT uses that might require more, or a generator, or, you know, there's always more electrical requirements than you think you will have.
Right. So at least I read in the scope that a generator is part of this work, and I certainly know that they had IP in mind in terms of the future, because it's a part of this project, albeit that it's not being paid by the state or CPA funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions from the public? Any other questions about this project? Vanessa has her hand up. Jamie?
Vanessa, you should be able to speak. Just give your full name and, I guess, position in the city and address.
Yep, Vanessa Krozik, Interim Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Gloucester. And my home address is 4 Jeffrey Street in Peabody, Massachusetts. I just wanted to thank JJ and Maggie for all their work. This has been a project long in the making. You know, we're very appreciative of the state's support to date. Just want to reiterate what he said. We have a $1.5 million grant award from the state. The contract has been signed. And, you know, should this application be approved and we can move forward with a loan order for the city's part of it, the 1.5 million grant will be appropriated to the city so that the work can begin. So just wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of that.
Is there any facade protection on this building? Is there any kind of an easement or
Yes, it's subject to a mass historical restriction.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And it's also within the historic district.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments on this application?
Is there any time restriction on the use of the state funds?
That's a very good question. I had the same question myself, and I do not have an answer to that. Vanessa, you might want to comment on that.
So not that I'm aware of. We said when we signed the contract that we expected the work to begin either the end of this year, possibly beginning of next year. So I think if it went beyond the next fiscal year, we would have to have discussions with the state, but I feel that they would move it over. It's earmarked for us. It's got our name all over it. So if the delay in a project went into a new fiscal year, I'm sure that we could have discussions with the state just to roll it over. I will get in touch with DCAM, the general counsel over there, to confirm that question. And once I get an answer, I'll relay it to the committee.
Thank you.
I have a question on the financing. Is this something that our grant has to be one lump sum, or is it spread out over a period like we did the other financing on City Hall?
Good question.
Yeah, so of course, this is a discussion you probably have with John Dunn, and I have, by the way, been talking to him a bit about this. But the way it worked the last time is there's a sort of there's a bond anticipation note, and which is in anticipation of the ultimate bond. And while the money's going out, that money's being sort of borrowed and used by for the CPA on an interest-only basis. And generally, it's within a period of 2 to 3 years. I think it's maybe a couple years that bond anticipation note then ripens into a bond. In this case, it could be as much as a 20-year bond because interest rates are so incredibly low.
Yeah.
And you want to obviously minimize the debt service so it has the least impact on what you all are doing each and every year. And the nice thing about it is, in 2025, the other bond that's outstanding matures and will be totally paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2025. I just want to compliment the City Hall Restoration Committee on the work you've done so far in that building. It looks absolutely beautiful, and I do think it's one of our most important structures in the city. So I commend you for keeping your eye on it and improving it, and hopefully we can make this happen.
Maggie Roser, I'm sure, is here, and give her a lot of credit. I'm just a soldier in her army.
She's a good general.
Maggie, did you want to speak?
So, Maggie Rosa, 26 Fort Hill Avenue. I apologize for not stating that in the first comments I made. I want to acknowledge also the efforts of the City Hall Restoration Commission. The most fantastic group of people that I've ever worked with, all willing to do their bit and go beyond. I'd also like to acknowledge the enthusiasm of the mayor, the current administration, and that'll also include Jim Destino and Margaret Ferrante. They've been a dream to work with because as they recognize this is a ridiculous building to preserve. It is our heritage, and as Addison Gilbert said, we've had a lot of problems. What he said at the dedication in 1871 is, we've seen several buildings go up. We hope this one lasts for a long time. I don't know that he thought it would last this long, but we look forward to celebrating the 150th next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. And thank you for all the hard work. Okay, I think it is time to move on to the why. So we have two applications.
Are we doing?
Why?
I'm sorry, Barbara. Are we doing Ocean Alliance or the Y next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why?
Why was next, but
I don't have them on my list.
okay, I see what I did. Okay, I'm sorry. How about Ocean Alliance?
All right.
So Ian, I see you here and I've promoted you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much. Ian Kerr, 3 Ledge Road, Gloucester, Mass. This petition is in support of the restoration of a seawall on the property and our car park. And in fact, actually, Jamie, could we go to the next slide? I can do it myself, can I? Okay, so if we go to the next slide. So these 2 buildings on the left, the little joining building and the big building, were actually put under a demolition order in 2011. And if you look at the little adjoining building, I apologize, can you see down at the water level, there's lots of vertical planks that are sticking down?
Yeah.
Basically these buildings had their own sort of seawall in front of them. okay? And the area around the building was never designed for the sort of wave and storm and tidal action they've actually been receiving since 2011. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I now wish I'd done a video, but so you can see the area where the two buildings were. And actually you can see how the rest of the seawall around the building has been stabilized from a CPA grant that was, I think, 3 iterations ago. Next slide, please. So if we look at this area, to be clear, you can see how it's eroding away. Now we've put some wooden beams at the top, but we need to understand that not only do we park our cars here, you can see a piece of artwork up there from the Gottman residency, but we have artists come to this site. We have our robotics club. We have children come to the site. We have visitors on the site. We actually had artists there today painting the buildings, and we've had community events on site. And actually, we hope to do more with our newly restored disabled access bathrooms that are in the final stages of completion. So we have an issue here. One, as it relates to the continued restoration of the site, because we can't put more buildings back with these seawalls sort of crumbling in. And we have also, how can I say it, an undetermined sort of pollution potential here that we don't actually know what was dumped in that car park. We have drilled 6 borings in there to see what's going on. But with this site, you never know. So we've made it somewhat of a priority to basically now stabilize and secure the seawall to prevent further erosion, provide storm resiliency, and provide safe community access to the site. One more slide, I think, maybe. Next slide. Well, anyway, okay, so you can just really sort of see what's going on there. I think really it's that simple. Now, we've engaged DeRosa Environmental to help us with the permitting process, and we plan on submitting an NOI with the Conservation Committee on October 21st for the November 4th meeting. We have requested the conservation agent to come on site for a visit. We've had numerous groups on board. For the Morin Cameron group are helping us with the surveyed site plans, and Summit Geoengineering has helped us with structurally engineered drawings. So we've actually spent quite a lot of time working this out. I think potentially that's it. Maybe I'll leave it open to questions. I'm not quite sure what else I could say at this time. So yes, one more slide maybe. Yeah, so the idea, is to use a precast concrete wall. When the buildings go back in place, you won't actually be able to see this wall. So, and we did actually get a $100,000 federal feasibility grant to do a feasibility study to put the buildings back. Believe it or not, my goal is to either have the Mania manufacturing building redone or these buildings done by the 400th anniversary. I know it's an ambitious goal, but between all of us, it really is just an issue of money now. But certainly we could put a sort of a historic fascia on this sort of precast concrete wall. But again, it won't be seen when the buildings go back. So at this point in time, we're just planning on putting in this wall. And I think it's important also as we look at sort of climate change and drainage and future flood zones. I think it's important that we stabilize this sort of corner of the site. So maybe I'll leave it at that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Actually, there might be one more drawing there. Anyway, okay, that's good. Just saying, yeah, anyway. On that shot, we're actually redoing all the lettering recently, and I was actually up on a ladder today just finishing it. We're slowly but surely sort of cleaning up the site as we maintain our job as a Oceanographic Institute. And I'm sure if any of you have been watching, we've had fishing vessels at our dock. We've had research vessels at our dock. We had a 150-foot yacht that came in and spent $15,000 in the town in 3 days. Looked like they have everybody on the waterfront walking for them. So I'm excited with how the site is evolving, not only from the work we do as an oceanographic research and education group, but how the site, I'm hoping, is sort of facilitating a new blue economy and the working waterfront. So again, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'll go first, if you don't mind. My question is, when we're on site, Ian referenced that the building they might put there is a floating building. That being said, repairing a wall, that's going to go behind a floating building to, really kind of preserve a parking lot. If you look at the ordinances guidelines for, conservation, I mean, how do I put this? The Community Preservation Act, it says that we're not supposed to help give money towards infrastructure. And I don't see how this cannot be considered just an infrastructure protection. Because as of right now, what we're doing is putting a wall to protect a parking lot. I know his plans on putting a building, but there's nothing concrete there, so to speak. I hate to use that pun. And if it is, it's gonna be a floating building. So I don't see how we can fund a infrastructure project at all. It's direct violation of the Community Preservation Act.
Well, absolutely. Copy that, John. I think when I look at the Community Preservation Act, it talks about, a place to live and maintaining an area of special identity, a place to work, supporting the blue economy, a place to visit, a destination for tourists, a place to appreciate. My reality is on the vision for the buildings to go back, we have two sets of plans in front of us that we were able to develop with the $100,000 feasibility grant. And one is putting the buildings back as they were. And the other one that I'm hoping is more exciting is putting in a climate change future-proof building, okay? And I would sort of disagree with you because I think I can't put that building in unless that seawall is stabilized. So clearly you folks have to work within the guidelines. I thought that we were consistent with, open space, historic resources, and recreation, again, preserving and enhancing the essential character of the city. But I think that, unfortunately, we're seeing around Gloucester, too many structures falling into the water because of this very issue. So, my goal, what I'm trying to do here is protect, preserve, enhance, restore, and rehabilitate the historical function of this particular site. So, and I think it clearly demonstrates a public benefit. But I'm with you, John, and certainly if you folks decide we don't meet the criteria, I will appreciate that.
Thank you. And again, that was just a comment I have, and I thank you for the response. I just also want to implore the other council members to look at that aspect of it, because yes, I do feel that if there was a plan in place that 100% guaranteed a building is going back to a preservation or restoration, then it would follow the guidelines. However, at this juncture, there is no second portion of that program. It's just repairing a wall, and as you said, for now, just to make sure the parking lot doesn't fall in. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just I'm concerned. I want every other council member to look at that for our deliberations moving forward. And I did want to mention it again, reinforce it to the applicant in this case. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Right. And if I could,
I would like to.
Yeah, could I make one more comment just briefly on that? And I would ask all of you, I like to think that we have sort of walked the talk. Do you know what I mean? We've said we're maintaining these buildings, and when you come down and look at them, do you know what I mean? We've maintained the historical facade, even though, technically we didn't have to. We've gone beyond the call of duty, one building at a time. And actually the good news is, the last set of buildings on site, literally 6 weeks ago, I got a $200,000 grant to finish those buildings. So we will have completed 3 buildings 100% on site by the end of this year. And you know, on one level, do I have the funding in place? Again, some of us haven't had that luxury, but I do think we have been consistent. And when we've said we're doing something, we've done it. And certainly the goal is not here just to sort of sit in one building. We want to get this work done. And I believe that I have funders out there that will rise to the challenge. But again, it is back to having enough pieces in place so that the funders won't be scared off by, you know, another component. But anyway, I appreciate it. And again, thank you for your time.
I would
And
like.
I'm sorry.
I would like to disagree with John. I don't agree with what he's said. If you can't stabilize the site, there's no way you can do historic preservation there. If you can't stabilize that site, you can't do historic preservation, John. So the fact of the matter is that it is definitely part of a necessity. It's not necessarily new facility to, you know, to protect a parking lot. It's protection for the site that is a historic site where historic buildings are being preserved. And I think it's within, but we can certainly check with a lawyer, but I disagree with John as far as it's not being appropriate for this committee.
No, and thank you, Frank. That's my point. I just want to make sure we have a discussion, make sure we're adhering to the law as governed. I'm not being judge and jury. I'm just making a fact. And Ian, at the same time, the fact that you have done so many good projects and have come forward and done what you said is why I'm excited to talk about this project. I think you have done a really nice job on everything, and I feel you have been a benefit to the community. And I'm not questioning that aspect of it. I'm just making sure that when, you know, looking at all aspects of the application as far as the law is concerned, what our job is as people who help suggest to other bodies. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Copy that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for coming. We all appreciate all the work that you've done. It's quite amazing, actually. Okay.
Again, thank you.
Let's move on to the why. So is Chris here? We have two hands up. Okay. Chris, do you want to start with, let's see, try to keep myself in order here. Let's start with the 71 Middle Street. Chris?
Hi, I just unmuted, but I think actually Tim Flaherty, our executive director, is here.
Okay.
So I'm going to let Tim start this off for us.
Okay. Hi, Tim. Can you give your name and address, please?
Tim Flaherty, 71 Middle Street, Gloucester. I want to thank you for having us for today. We're excited about talking about the new affordable housing for about 44 units in our community. As you see, Chris Lavasco is with us today, our CEO, and Kathy Churchill, our housing director, along with Jennifer and David from Affirmative Investments, along with Stefano from S&V Affirmative Architects. When we decided to build this new Y on Gloucester Crossing Road, we worked with the city and the mayor to envision the needs for the future at 71 Middle Street. We quickly came upon the need for more affordable housing units, with the YMCA having the necessary experience and expertise in developing and managing affordable housing. So it made sense to go in this direction. So we are really excited to work with the mayor and the city to partner like we always have to do this exciting project. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who's going to kind of explain in detail what this project is all about. Jennifer?
Thank you, Tim. I hope everybody can hear me. First, before I begin, Jamie, I just wanted to ask you at the beginning of the call, you mentioned to press star and then I think it's 2 numbers after that. It's people that are on the call on the phone wanted to answer questions.
Star 9 is how you would raise your hand if you're calling in on a phone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide?
Well, can we get your name and address first, please?
Oh, sure. Sorry, Barbara. Jennifer Kaloji, 27 Central Street, Beverly, Mass.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the project site. The site is currently the home of the Cape Ann YMCA, and it's right between City Hall and Main Street. There is a temple across the street and also the library, and the building next door is owned by the YMCA as well. They have childcare there and some SRO housing. So the Y is currently constructing a new YMCA at the old Fuller School. And so once that new facility opens, the building at 71 Mill Street will become vacant at the beginning of the year. So both the city and the Y do not want a vacant building downtown. So activating this site is critical. The Y intends to demolish this building and build 44 one-bedroom apartments for seniors at this site. Can you go to the next slide, Jamie? Thank you. So as you can, hopefully you can see, number 1 at the very bottom of the map is the WISE site, and that was cited in the Gloucester Housing Production Plan as one of the important housing opportunity sites to be developed for housing. So we just wanted to point that out. If you can go to the next slide, Jamie. So the levels of affordability, so 100%, so all of the units will be affordable in this building. 26 units will be restricted to seniors that have incomes at or below 60% of area median income, which is about $54,000. 9 units will be restricted to seniors with incomes at or below 50% AMI, and 9 units will be restricted to seniors with incomes at or below 30% AMI. And so the Gloucester Housing Authority's 5-year plan has identified the critical need for one-bedroom seniors, for seniors making 30, 50, and 60% of the area median income. So there is a tremendous need for affordable senior housing. It's one of the biggest challenges facing residents of Gloucester, especially those 62 or older. More than half of those are housing cost burden, which means that you would spend more than 30% of your income on housing. So currently there are 289 local elderly on the Gloucester Housing Authority's wait list for one-bedroom units. And there are also 120 seniors on the wait list at Central Grammar Apartments, which is just a block from this site. And so the demand for senior housing is only going to increase because it's estimated that by 2030, 58% of the city's households will be age 60 or older. We will also offer not only housing, but a robust menu of supportive services. So I'll just skim over this briefly because I know we're running a little late here. So we're going to have a resident service coordinator on site who will help them to apply for benefits and plan for social events. The Y will also be offering memberships to the new YMCA and transportation over there so that they can participate in health and wellness activities. And we also are going to form a connection with the Rose Baker Senior Center, Senior Care Inc., and Element Care to provide a full range of services for our seniors. So it's sort of 3 tiers of care, to care for everyone who is, you know, completely independent, to those that need Meals on Wheels, to those that are almost at nursing home stage. You can go to the next slide, Jamie. So this is just a brief timeline, and we will be applying for our comprehensive permit, be submitting the application soon to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then in October will be a pre-application to DHCD, and then the full application to DHCD will be due in January. And we're hoping that we can get our comprehensive permit approved by the ZBA in November or December. So now I'm going to hand it off to Stefano Basso, who's the Senior Project Manager at SV Design.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. Stefano Basso. I'm at 11 Ames Street in Salem. Thanks for taking the time to hear our application tonight. I'll keep it brief, but feel free to ask any questions or let me know if I cut out. So this is a new building. You can go to the next slide. That's meant to fit into the existing neighborhood better than the building that it replaces. In designing this building, we looked at the architectural context of Middle Street and Main Street. We looked at the dense urban scale, the historical detailing, the activated ground floor that's scaled for the pedestrian experience as you walk down the street. The Patello building next door, that's also owned by the Y, had particular influence on us as we matched the scale of the 3-story brick building, the siding, the rhythm of the windows, the bays. While being respectful to the neighborhood, this building is not a copycat. We have a prominent corner that is appropriate for the connection between Middle and Hancock Street that ties it back to Main Street. The 3rd floor features a mansard roof on the 2 street-facing facades with various gable and shed dormers that help to break up the height of the building and add a little bit of detail. Next slide. The building is L-shaped in plan with 3 stories of 1-bedroom apartments from Middle Street up. There is a partially underground parking level below that opens onto Hancock Street in the same area where there is currently an existing open parking lot. So the public spaces here on the 1st floor at Middle Street level are concentrated at the prominent corner to the bottom right of the plan. So this includes the lobby, the offices, the community room. This area is highlighted with commercial storefront glazing that kind of adds to the commercial feel to the pedestrian as you round that corner. Next slide. So this is our typical 1-bedroom unit. This complies with the rigorous DHCD guidelines for senior housing. I won't get into too many details, but these guidelines hit a million points really, and outline minimum room sizes, dimensions, clearances so people can get around. There's a certain baseline of accessibility that even in our non-accessible units, we have 4 fully accessible units by DHCD standards. All of our units meet their requirements that make them very accessible and easy to convert if anyone needs their unit converted because of new mobility issues that arise. We can go to the next slide. So this is the courtyard that's in the middle of the block. This is a great feature for a building that's this size and this location downtown. This allows the residents to stay outdoors, to take a stroll around the yard, or to sit in the sun or in the shade. There's access for emergency egress to both Middle Street and Hancock from the courtyard, but the primary access is from the elevator down through the parking garage. Yeah, I think we'll keep it at that, but let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from the applicants or their team? Okay, questions from the committee?
So, go ahead.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate that you are gonna offer these units at 60%, 50%, and 30% AMI. I think that that's really a target point for the city that hits truly affordable structures. So I as presented, and Jennifer and Stefano, thank you. I think you did a nice job presenting this. At the I think the project is as conceived is a really nice affordable housing project. And I understand. So I guess my question or my concerns all the time was about the permitting. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be submitting your 40B application to the zoning board in the next couple of months, and hopefully you can get some permitting on this by the end of December. But I don't really have any questions at this point. I just want to say I appreciate the project as it's been conceived by the YMCA.
John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I like to agree with Catherine on utilizing the Gloucester Housing Authority 5-year plan for affordable housing in our community. I think it's a great concept. I think we should use that moving forward on all affordable housing projects that come in front of us. A, then B, my question was, so, I mean, I just heard it's gonna be 40B, but there's not gonna be enough parking for all the residents, right? So I'm just out of curiosity. So, you know, I know a lot of elderly don't drive as much, but there's still gonna be a need for parking spots. So how many spaces does the garage, this design gonna hold? And, you know, is there, just out of curiosity, is another plan for winter when snow events come if there isn't enough spaces?
Sure, I can answer that. So there are 27 spaces that are underground, and in our experience doing many affordable housing developments, the ratio of those amount of spaces to the number of units should be adequate and maybe even a little bit extra. And even looking at the Gloucester Housing Authority's properties, this seems in line with those. But we are having a traffic and parking study done just to make sure and confirm that.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I have one other question about parking too. So are there guest spaces in there? Enough, do you think?
I think so. Stefano, are there guest spaces in there? I know there are 2 handicap accessible spaces.
Okay.
Jennifer, this is Tara. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Tara Mizrahi. I'll give my address too. I'm at 43 Hillcrest Ave in Lexington, Mass. I'm at Affirmative Investments too. I'm one of the principals there. And when Jennifer mentioned that the ratio that we've seen, that we've done at other senior facilities, and also speaking with doing our own kind of analysis of the Gloucester Housing Authority properties, those did include both resident parking and service providers. So actually in these senior facilities, you know, there are a decent number of, there's guests always, but there's also, you know, aides and things that we want to have parking for. So while we haven't kind of said how many spaces are going to be set aside for residents versus aides, the parking count that we have, that we feel comfortable with at this 27 would provide parking for all types of people, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any other questions from the committee? Do we have any questions from the public? Okay, I think we're finished. Thank you very much.
Very nice project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that the architecture was considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it, Jamie?
That is it for presentations.
Yes, okay. Now we have, we move to the public portion of this hearing. This is a public hearing, which means that we would like to hear from anyone who wants to comment on anything related to the Community Preservation Committee and its applications and its process, or its the way it does business. Anything that you would like to share with us, we would be happy to hear. So is there anyone who would like to make a comment at this point? So I take it we're perfect? I doubt that. Anybody?
All right.
Well, if you have another comment that you think of after you leave, or you would like to communicate with us at any time, you can communicate through Jamie, who will share whatever your thoughts are. We would again be happy to hear them. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time. Okay, are there any other agenda items? Are we?
No, just just for all of our understanding going forward, at our next meeting, we'll start to take these applications individually and discuss their merits and pros and cons. And
So in the meantime, Catherine, can you get a read on the Ocean Alliance application eligibility?
oh, sure, as to whether the retaining wall would be eligible for funding, sure.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question about Ocean Alliance, please?
Sure.
Sure.
You know, I had,
Yeah.
being new to the committee, when we went out, whenever we did, was it in July, to look at the site, it was the first time I'd been there. And I have a big question about the road that gets people there. I mean, for heaven's sakes. Is that road stable, and is it always passable? And does anyone else know what I'm talking about? Or are you just used to the road?
Well, it's narrow.
It's narrow.
It's narrow and bumpy and in bad condition, and it's right on the water, and it's, I mean, tourists, and even to get there was questionable, in my opinion.
It was a little fun. Kind of a little hidden, but I understand your point.
Well, I guess at one point it served a manufacturing plant and all the employees that came in and out every day. But, you know, that question, Jennifer Lee, has arisen quite a bit when there were other projects contemplated for that site. I mean, that site is zoned, and I don't know if it still is, but it was zoned marine industrial.
Sure.
Which, you know, so technically you could put other, you know, a fish plants or uses out there that would have a much higher usage of like trucks and, you know, delivery people and all that kind of stuff. So whether that's a suitable designation for that lot or not, I don't know, but I think we should be glad that someone could have come in there as of right and put a truck, shipping company. So I guess we have to deal with what the road is, but it is, I mean, there is a question, if you have two cars, right, passing each other, like who goes where, you know.
Have you seen my little car? My little car, and I'm an experienced driver. I'm not a woozy driver. The whole way there, it was like, are they kidding me?
Yeah.
And I'm just bringing it up. I'm just bringing it up.
But at the same time, it's a private road, and it's up, and they're allowing us onto their property. So if anybody responsible is a property owner at this point. So it's not even a public road; it's a private road.
Whoa, that makes me. And so the only way to get to our thing that we're funding is a private road.
No, for the water, it's water access. You're supposed to come by
it's
boat.
water access, and that's why we're dealing with the parking lot.
No, it's boats. It's for boats.
It's for boats, and that's why we're talking about spending money on the parking lot.
Look, no, we're stabilizing this site, not.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. I'm not questioning the merit of the project. I'm just bringing up
the limitations of the site.
Maritime access.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course.
Okay.
We should have a larger dock. What?
They come by boat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for allowing me the diversion.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, can we just say when's our next meeting?
Yes, sorry.
Jamie, when's our next meeting?
September 15th.
All right.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Would someone like to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Got it.
See you next time. Take care. Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Whee!